thank you for listening to that. I'll try to tie it in quickly because I think these main concepts are best discussed through dialogue, question and answer. So I'll go through it just enough to get you started. So first, I'd like to go kind of a play-by-play through the show. Unfortunately, I had this great lighting effect. I was hopefully going to start you here, but it just doesn't seem to work when we need it to work. But that's okay. So at the moment when Strange Man enters the university, he notices we all have coffee cups in our hand. I consider that the moment of which someone realizes that place can have value. You may be a 3-year-old child laying in a moist grass, staring up at the warm sun. Or you might be a 50-year-old who finally made it to the Sierras and just realized what an awesome landscape is. So for the design student, it usually happens sometime before deciding to go to design school. So this first horizontal line, continuing all the way throughout, is this idea of the conception. Secondly, when Strange Man conceives of this idea of coffee, he then wants to relate his body to that coffee, understand more about it. So he begins his search. That is the point of thought, of which he begins to ask questions. And first he finds Precise Man, who gives him equations. And of course, this is a true definition of coffee, but it's missing the point. It is perhaps too meticulous, too one-sided to really get the experience of what place can be. Let me back up real quick. If it's not obvious, we have the cup is a symbol for place. And the coffee ingredients is the symbol for the experience in that place. And Strange Man is the design student. And of course, he isn't the design student until he decides to be the design student via his interest in learning more and asking these questions and finally deciding to become a student. So first, like I said, he came to Precise Man, who gives him one definition here. And then he finds Intuitive Man, who uses colors and beauty and seeks these larger truths. And here is that definition that is offered to him through Intuitive Man. And of course, this falls short as well, because if we only watercolored and painted in the design world, we'd never get a project done. So next he finds, luckily, he stumbles onto Gentleman, who is the archetype for the ideal professor and someone who is sort of the design sage, maybe, as we can consider him. And he allows and offers the world of academia to the student. And so Strange Man becomes a student, which I call the second dimension of designing the sacred, or of the architectural process. And that is this line here. And in this line we have the idea of representation, and that we are learning skills, we're absorbing skills, and we're spitting them out sort of one-to-one on a flat plane. It's not quite yet. We're not quite yet manifesting space. We're not quite yet creating. We're absorbing and spitting out the best we can, a filter of what we're learning. That is the moment of ourselves being sort of as small, in this diagram, for example, here. We have this idea of us being a small dot within the world of academia. So next, Strange Man tests his knowledge out on his clients, Strangeland, and fails his first design assignment. They love the idea, the novelty of this new thing, but with time, it fails. They've abandoned their cups and coffee. It's worn off, the excitement is gone. And so that is the idea of, that's sort of the failed design assignment where maybe it's obvious, where you're making a landscape or building a building and eventually just isn't, the test of time has failed. But nonetheless, the design moment is this third dimensional thing where you are designing and going into the third dimension of height, width, and length, one-to-one. Usually we are essentially demonstrating space via three-dimensional demonstration of modeling or AutoCAD. On this side, we have 3D printing, we have Axon, we have parametric modeling. We also have these tools of folding, and as they get more and more intuitive over here, we have plane models and just sort of sketch models. And so these are demonstrations of the space, because it's a one-to-one ratio of 3D space at one scale to the actual 3D space in real life. So the fourth dimension, which is the real important point, there's sort of two moments in Strange Man's experience where he hits the fourth dimension. The first one is where he begins to drink coffee every day. This is analogous with an architect's opportunity to create for themselves their own public sacred place. This would be creating a public garden. This would be you actually manifesting a design with your own hands, with your own labor and your own time, rather than designing and passing it off to a construction team and manifesting that way. So I consider that this sort of the shallow end of the fourth dimension. And finally, the deep end of the fourth dimension is the moment when you're able to take that experience of your day-to-day practice at this fourth dimension and apply it to another situation, another client, or another community that's outside of yourself, that is perhaps has different values. And the power that you gain through your own experience can be applied to help them gain a similar sacred experience on their terms and not necessarily yours. And that is the deepest form of engagement in the fourth dimension. So on this board, I've laid it out on a sort of scale between a precise way of representing the ideas and an explanation or a demonstration of precise tools, moving over here on a gradient scale to more intuitive tools that we can use through each of the dimensions. And briefly, I tried to tie it in as much as I could with the handout that you're given. And the handout itself is really, I consider it sort of a precise way of explaining the concepts, and that the play itself is an intuitive way of explaining pretty much those same concepts. So I'd love to have your questions and clarify from then on through dialogue.
What's the ear things?
Yes, okay, the ear things. We've got, it's impossible to represent the fourth dimension exactly. So the only way we can do it is through witnessing it in the third dimension, which is our reality here. And so the best I could do is try to put that element of time through several ways. So this listening is an audio track of conversations that I've had in the public sacred place that I have been maintaining for about 2 years now. And so these are hopefully a sort of demonstration of what the dialogue between community and designer the type of conversations and learning you can gain from them. So it's my best demonstration of that. And then also here we have the idea of sort of the present, these objects floating in space in the present, and the past as this object behind. So this is an easy example. Here's a new brick, and here is brick through time.
Where's Louis?
So
anyway, I've got to go to an undergraduate meeting, but I just want to say I really appreciate the design of your installation and the fact that we had a performance. It's probably one of the most enjoyable thesis presentations I've been to, and plus I got to get stoked up with some coffee. So great job, and I'm sure everybody else had other comments, but I got
Thanks for coming, Ted.
But it's awesome. Thank you. Good job.